Welcome to Search and Rescue Services. My name's Philip Benfield and I'm the pilot who does the drone thermal flying for you. This is my DJI Matrice 300 with a H20T thermal camera. I still have this drone, it's still in my fleet, but I've now upgraded to the DJI M4T. It's the latest technology for thermal, and that's the main one that I'm using now. I still have this available, but it very rarely comes out anymore. This drone cost me $35,000 and was the latest technology back then, but there's some smarter stuff out there now. As you can see, this is the type of view that I see from my controller when I'm out in the field. Using thermal is very handy to be able to pick up heat sources in the bushland. So while I'm flying around, I'm looking for bright white heat source, and as you can see just coming up here, you'll see a really bright white dot in the middle of nowhere where it shouldn't be. That's a very clear indication that something is alive on the ground. Even the trees have their own heat source within them. Roadways do, as you can see that road there, and there's a really bright white dot that's sticking out to me, and that's when I can come down and zoom in. So at night time, which is most of the time while I'm flying, I can't really see in the dark, but this drone I've got, the M4T, it has spotlights on it, so those spotlights can highlight an area like that, and I can pick up to see what sort of animal it is. So I can identify if it's an animal, what sort of animal it is, and also clear it off my screen by marking it to indicate that I've already seen that heat source and it's not my target animal. Very soon you're going to see a bird up the top right corner there flying across the screen. Birds are really good heat sources. You can spot them out a mile away, and generally they're sitting in trees. So if you do have a lost bird, certainly consider us, because we can spot these types of birds in trees and verify what they are. Here's a very good heat source there. You can sort of generally tell if they're in a tree or on the ground by the way you fly your drone. So I'll just zoom in on this one. It's coming down a bit lower there to get a bit more better spotlight on it, because it is night time. And that's the spotlight hitting the tree, so it looks like a possum to me, so we'll move on from that one. As I said, I generally like to do the thermal drone work during night time or very early hours. Here you'll see me in the morning, early hours morning, so I've got daylight there to help me use the zoom camera, and that's that heat source there. If we've got very clear open paddock, so that clearing in blue there is very clear paddock, and anything that's a heat source there will just stick out like dog balls. So if you've got a big open football field, I can generally search that football field in about 2 seconds. As the thicker bush comes in, I'll need to slow a bit down and do a more... So very soon you'll see me flying in around residential area. You can see the amount of heat source coming from the roadways, pathways, buildings, cars. Although it's bright out there, the bushland always keeps its same temperature, so I can fly around residential areas. You see a white dot coming up in the middle there. That sticks out to me, so I'm just going to come down a bit and just check out what that is. They're obviously tree branches that have maintained their heat through the night. And I'll just get in a position where I can zoom in and see what that heat source is in the center of the screen just there. Tree branch in the way, I'll just move around a bit, and it's a kangaroo or wallaby. Easy to confirm. So we're flying in daylight, early morning hours here still, and the heat source is still pretty good. As the morning gets really hot, all that bushland that's sort of blue will turn into sort of a brighter orange or yellow, which will then confuse me to see what sort of what the difference between an animal and the environment around it. So anyone offering you drone services through the middle of the day, they're probably pulling your leg. When I mentioned flying in open paddocks, this looks like some sort of farming land ready to plant stuff. These animals just stick out like dog's balls, and you can clearly see they're rabbits by the way they're hopping around. You see us coming up through some cattle area. Obviously the bigger the animal, the bigger the heat source it's going to stick out. Obviously bigger's the better for thermal, we can see it easy. However, I can pick up things as big as a dragonfly, birds, mice, rats. So they're a massive heat source there, being cattle. So if you've lost your cow or horse, certainly consider us. We have found pigs in the past. So I'm relying on the ground temperature to be cold and the surrounding bushland to be cold. So if I've got a chance to fly early hours of the morning or just before sunrise, I normally start about 4 a.m, but that's a little bit flexible. 4 a.m, sort of getting into your colder parts of the night, and then will allow me time to utilize some of the daylight when it starts coming up in a couple of hours time to go back over the areas that I've searched. And let's say I can't see the animal properly, I can mark it and come back to it later. So yeah, we can clearly see how well that thermal's running, and it's still morning, early morning there. And I've obviously left that other animal to the left there in the middle because I can verify that it's a wallaby or kangaroo due to its tail. So you get used to seeing things. All this might be a bit confusing for you looking at the screen, but after a while you get a chance to identify and work out what things are quite easily the more you operate these drones. So I've identified a heat source there. It's in quite thick bushland. Bit hard to see through some of the canopy. So in a minute I'll have the owners of the animal going in there to have a look for it. So you'll be able to see what a human looks like under the thermal. And what's the advantage of having a drone up in there is if I've identified the heat source, I can stay above the heat source and then direct the person into where that heat source is on foot. And I can marry the two up together just by using lining up the heat sources as they walk together. Just let this one roll for a minute and you'll be able to see the human. I believe we were looking for a bird for this one, so the size of it was a bit confusing looking at the screen there. It was quite a small animal. At the end of the day it could have even been a rat or similar in size. So it's somewhere under that bushland, and we weren't sure if the bird was under there or not, so we had the families walk in. You'll be surprised on how hot birds can get, especially when they're flying or just landing. They really stick out on the thermal. So again, if you lost a bird, certainly consider us. There's the human walking in. And by this stage that animal, whatever it was, ran off, so we ended up losing it. So I'm guessing it was going to be a rat or similar, because it would have been that size. This next one there's a beehive, believe it or not. It stood out quite a lot to me, and that's the heat source. Bees. Can't remember what this one was. Well, let's check it out and we'll see what it is. See if you can work it out what it is before we get there. So it looks like it's in a tree somewhere, so it's obviously not a dog. So we can tell generally if it's in a tree by the way we move the drone. If it stays up high and the trees don't move, yeah, we can sort of work out what it is. What is that thing? Let's get the zoom going. There you go, two birds in love, sitting side by side. This next one's going to be some sort of bird, an eagle or similar. I can't work out what it is once we zoom in, but you can see how clearly white it is compared to the surrounding area. So that could be the size of a football field, and I can see an item in a tree in the middle of a football field. So it's quite handy to have the thermal running, and the quicker you get to us the better. What is that? Sea eagle? Yeah, maybe. I'm not a bird expert.